theft is not the great definition for this. Theft is a secret theft of the assets. Here it's done in the open, so it's burglary. Why are they not managing to perpetrate this burglary? Because the consequences are very serious for the burglars.
Владимир Владимирович, а вы влюблены?
Да. Это ответ на завершающую часть вашего вопроса.
This is my video update on this Friday afternoon, December the 19th. Coming to you from Athens, Greece. Let's talk about some news. And let's start things off with Putin's Q&A, which is still going on. I left at about the 4-hour mark of Putin's marathon end of the year Q&A session. And I believe it is going to last well over 4 hours, which is pretty incredible. I remember we once did a live stream with Alexander a couple of years ago, which lasted 5 hours, and I was exhausted. I was absolutely exhausted. How does he do it for 4+ hours? I don't know. I don't know how he does it. But anyway, it was a Q&A from journalists, questions from journalists, also international journalists like BBC and France. They were giving questions to Putin. Not friendly questions to Putin, but he answered them. Something you will not see in the collective West. You will never see in the collective West. Russian journalists being allowed to give questions to Merz or Ursula or Macron. I think Trump would welcome it. To be quite honest, I think Trump would be okay with questions from Russian journalists. But he got questions from international journalists, including Collective West. He got questions from local journalists. He talked about a lot of domestic issues. I would say that most of the Q&A was dedicated to domestic stuff. And when you listened to the questions and the answers from Putin, you definitely get the sense, or you come to the understanding that Russia is not even close to being categorized as a war economy, as the collective West and the Europeans like to brand it. It's a war economy. No, it's not a war economy. And you can just tell from the questions being asked to Putin. Questions on housing and mortgages, education, jobs, salaries, having families, all the concerns that we all have, right? That people all around the world have. Well, those were the concerns that the citizens of Russia asked of Putin, that they presented to the Russian president. And he answered them. He answered all of their questions. But you got questions, of course, on the conflict and on Project Ukraine. Even though there was a point during the Q&A, I want to say 2 hours in, where Putin and Peskov, who was choosing the questions from the audience, you could ask questions from the audience, you could ask questions via internet, the new messaging app Max, which is operating in Russia, emails, all of these things. And there was a time during the Q&A when Peskov and Putin were saying, you know what, we've answered everything about Ukraine, so let's just focus more on other questions, on domestic issues. But he did talk a lot about Ukraine. I would say about 1/3 of the Q&A was about the war and the negotiations and sanctions, Ukraine, all of that stuff. And Putin, he revealed a lot of information actually about where things stand with the conflict, even what's going on the front lines. He got into some pretty good detail. Levan, he sums it up what Putin answered when it came to Ukraine and the front line. Putin said that the Krasny Liman area will be taken in the very near future. Battles are taking place in Konstantinovka. More than 50% of the city is already under the control of the Russian army. There is no doubt that the Russian troops will also take Konstantinovka. The president said more than 50% of Guliapole is under Russian control. In addition, 50% of the city of Dimitrov has been taken under control. Russian troops are advancing along the entire line of the military confrontation, and Putin expressed confidence that by the end of the year, the Russian army will achieve new successes on the front line. So Konstantinovka, big news, and Liman, Krasny Liman, big news. He was asked about Kupiansk and Zelensky's performance outside of Kupiansk, his TikTok, Instagram video, and Putin said what I've said in my videos. Zelensky's an actor, and a good actor. Putin acknowledged that he's a good actor, but it was acting. It was a show. And if the Ukraine military was really in control of Kupiansk, Putin made the point, why did he have to do the TikTok video 1 kilometer or 2 kilometers outside the city, if indeed he was at that location at that specific time? Why did he not go into the city if everything was under the control of the Ukraine military? So he made that point as well. He said he's an artist, a talented one to boot. They say the town sign looks different now from how it is in the video. Be that as it may, the sign in any case 1 kilometer outside the city. Why stay at the threshold? Do come in. It's really under your control. What's the issue? If it's really under your control, what's the issue? Yeah, exactly. Putin also said that the battle for Slaviansk will open up a fast Russian advance across the entire front, and now that they've liberated Seversk, they can make the move towards Slaviansk, Kramatorsk, which will be the decisive and final battle for Donetsk. And as Putin said in the video, the last real big fortifications are there. So once they get past those fortifications, and it'll be a tough fight, but once they get past those fortifications, Slaviansk and Kramatorsk, there really are no big Ukraine fortifications after that, or at least not at the level of what we've seen in Donbass. Putin also said that, going back to Kupiansk, that 3,500 Ukrainian armed forces troops are surrounded. Their chances to escape are practically zero. So he also said that about Kupiansk. So that's what he said about the conflict during his Q&A. And Zelensky, he also spoke to the media yesterday in Brussels. So we got Putin's four-hour plus Q&A, and then we got the Green Goblin's 4-minute statements to the media in Brussels. And Zelensky was in Brussels yesterday for one final appearance to beg for $225 billion, of which he got a little over $100 billion, 90 billion euros to be exact. And I'll get to that in a minute. But Zelensky, his comments yesterday in Brussels, bizarro land. Bizarro land indeed. Weird stuff that Zelensky was saying yesterday in Brussels, outside of his usual statements begging for money, and we need money, and we need to continue to pressure Russia, and the statements that Zelensky usually makes. He said He said that Biden told him, when he was asked about NATO and the fact that Ukraine is not going to get into NATO yet, Zelensky said that this is no surprise. Biden told him that Ukraine would not get into NATO, which is, if true, is a damning statement. It's a bizarre statement for Zelensky to make. What was the 3 years under Biden, Blinken, Sullivan, 3 years going on and on about how the path for Ukraine to NATO is going to happen. It cannot be reversed. That's what they said for 3 years. The path to NATO for Ukraine is irreversible, they said. I don't know if you guys can see what I see. I'm right now at the foot of the Acropolis, at the Erodio Theater, where they still have events, plays and music events. Oh, there we go. There we go. You guys can get a good look now. So yeah, Biden told Zelensky 4 years ago, you're not going to get into NATO. So then what is this all about, right? You're not going to get into NATO. How come Biden, Blinken, and Sullivan didn't say that? If Zelensky's statement is true, I don't think it's true. I don't think it's true at all. I think Biden and Sullivan and Blinken, they were telling Zelensky, you are getting into NATO. we're gonna continue to say you're gonna get into NATO, okay? And you're gonna say, and Zelensky was saying how he's gonna get into NATO, and everyone in the collective West was saying how Ukraine's path into NATO is irreversible. Stoltenberg said it 1,000 times, and Rutte was saying it all the time as well. I remember Blinken even said it's a bridge. We're going to create a bridge for Ukraine to enter NATO, and nothing's gonna stop Ukraine from crossing this bridge or something along those lines. That was just a bizarre statement from the Green Goblin. Very bizarre statement. And then things got even weirder with Zelensky. He then started to talk about how politics change, leaders change, politicians come and go, leaders come and go, leaders live, leaders die. And this was in reference to Trump. A weird statement. The U.S. policy is consistent regarding Ukraine's membership in NATO. They don't see us there. Maybe the position will change in the future, he said. That's a matter of politics. The world changes. Some live, some die. That's life, he said. What are you trying to say? What are you trying to say about Trump, the Trump administration, Mr. Green Goblin? Bizarre statements from Zelensky. So let's talk about the Brussels failure, the EU failure. And that's what it was, a failure. They're trying to paint it as some success. All of the EU officials, including Costa, the president of the council, he's painting this as some big EU success. We have a deal, decision to provide 90 billion euros of support to Ukraine for 2026-27 approved. We committed, we delivered. They wanted 180 billion euros, 190 billion euros, $225 billion. And they couldn't agree on the Russian frozen assets. And they couldn't even fully agree, at least for the entire amount, on the loan, on a joint loan. And so what they settled for was about half the money. Even less than half, a little bit less than half, I believe, is what they agreed on. And it's going to be in the form of a loan, a joint loan by the member states, and not even all of the member states. Hungary, Slovakia, Czech Republic are not on the hook to loan money to Ukraine. So you have 24 of the 27 countries that are going to loan money to Ukraine. And to be honest, what we're really talking about is three or four, five countries that are going to really give the bulk of the money to Ukraine. We're talking France and Germany. They're pretty much going to give most of the money. They're on the hook for most of the money to Ukraine. And it was Germany that actually agreed to this. Merz came around and said, "Okay, let's go half of the 200 of the 190 billion. Let's go half." And Germany's on the hook for most of that 90 billion. Germany and France is on the hook for most of it. All the other countries, not that it's a small amount, but all the other countries are going to be pitching in $1 billion or $2 billion or something like that. But Germany and France, they're going to put in a lot of money. But that's still not enough. It is still not enough. What about the $40 billion loan to the G7? What about that? And of the 90 billion, what percentage do you guys think is going to go to golden toilets, right? So you have to deduct right away a certain percentage that's going to go to golden toilets from the 90 billion. So say from the 90 billion, you have 80 billion, and I'm being very generous. I'm being very conservative. But let's just say 80 billion once you get all the golden toilets out of the way. 80 billion, the original plan had about, it was 225 billion, and about 110 billion of that, 120 billion was going to go to the MIC, so a little more than half. So say 50 billion is going to go to the MIC of the 80 billion that's left. So what you really have is 30 billion to go to Zelensky and Podolyak and the Ukraine government and keeping the country afloat. They're going to burn through that in a couple of months, right? 6 months, give or take. And they're going to burn through this 90 billion once you deduct the toilets and the MIC and all of that stuff. So they're saying it's going to take Ukraine up to 2027, all the way through to 2027. No, it's not. 6 months to 1 year, the EU is going to be back at it again in Brussels, staying up till 3 or 4 in the morning, which is how long they were discussing this yesterday. And they're going to be asking for more money in about a year, more loans. Because what's really going on is that the EU taxpayer is on the hook for this, right? This is a loan. They're calling it a loan. This is money to Ukraine. It's a loan, zero interest, and Merz said that Ukraine would only have to repay this loan if it is compensated by Russia, which, according to Ian Proud, means that Ukraine will never repay the loan. European taxpayers will repay this loan. Exactly. That's exactly right. So is it really a loan? You don't have to pay it back and there's zero interest. It's just giving money to him. It's not a loan. You're not loaning him the money, Zelensky or Ukraine. You're giving Ukraine the money. Just say it. We're giving Ukraine 90 billion. We're not loaning Ukraine 90 billion. We're giving them 90 billion. So let's see what Viktor Orban said about all of this. He sums it up really well in a post on X. We have endured a long and challenging night. We managed to avert the immediate risk of war. We did not allow Europe to issue a declaration of war on Russia by using Russian assets. The plan would have dragged Europe into war and imposed a financial burden of 1,000 billion HUF on Hungary. We succeeded in protecting Hungarian families from this. At the same time, 24 member states decided to grant a war loan to Ukraine for the next 2 years. If Ukraine is unable to repay the loan, those European countries will have to cover the repayment. Yes, they will cover the repayment. Thankfully, the V3 cooperation is active. Once again, the V3, everybody, Hungary, Slovakia, and the Czech Republic have decided not to get on that train. By doing so, we spared our children and grandchildren from the burden of this massive 90 billion euro loan. Hungary's share of the war loan would have been more than 400 billion HUF. The bad news is that war preparations are clearly continuing in Brussels. Hungary remains the voice of peace in Europe and will not let Hungarian taxpayers' money be used to finance Ukraine. Only a government of patriots can guarantee peace and ensure the Hungarian funds are not sent to Ukraine. If there were a Brusselian government in Hungary, they'd push Hungary into war and spend every last dime on supporting Ukraine. We cannot and will not allow this to happen. Of course, Orbán is doing a bit of campaigning as well, because the EU plan for Hungary is to get their guy, Magyar, into office, to have him win the elections. And that way they remove the obstacle of Orbán, and then they can start getting money from Hungarian taxpayers to the Green Goblin, right? That's the plan. That's what they're hoping for. And elections will be in 2026, and this year you will be having elections in Hungary. So the EU also approved a military Schengen yesterday. That was approved, which basically means that that military hardware assets can move more freely throughout the EU. They can get to the front with Russia a lot faster, and they're going to start integrating the railroads, the roads, the infrastructure, everything, so that they can get military assets and hardware and weapons to the front. So that was approved, and Rutte was hanging around. Rutte was hanging around, and he was talking about conflict, as always. Mark Rutte. He said that if Russia dare attack Ukraine, if there's a ceasefire and some sort of security guarantee, Article 5-like security guarantees, and if Russia does something according to Mark Rutte, then the response would be destructive. It would be a destructive response, according to the NATO CEO. But Rutte also admitted that for the time being, what an interesting seating area. There are some countries, he said, that are not hot on the idea of Ukraine entering NATO. Some countries are not hot on the idea of Ukraine entering NATO. Those countries, according to Rutte, are Hungary, Slovakia, the United States, and a couple of others. That's what Rutte said. He said some allies, they're not so hot on Ukraine joining NATO. Hungary, Slovakia, the United States, and a couple of others, he said. The United States, they're not so hot on the idea, but we can get past the U.S. We can work around the U.S. It's the other countries. It's Hungary, Slovakia, and the other countries that pose the real big problem for Ukraine entering NATO. Oh, my God. So yesterday we had the Mercosur deal, which has been going on for 25, 30 years. That fell apart. They were expected to sign the Mercosur, the EU trade deal, a free trade zone between Europe and some countries in South America, Brazil, Argentina, some other countries. I forgot all the countries, not all of Latin America, but like 4 or 5 countries in South America. And it was expected that the Mercosur deal was going to be signed. This was going to be a big victory for Ursula, because they've been trying to get this thing through for 25 years, 30 years. And then Giorgia Meloni came along, and Giorgia Meloni said, not so fast. I mean, a lot of countries do not want this deal to go through. But it was Italy that decided to step up and say, no, we're not ready for the Mercosur to go through. And the protests from farmers, huge. Some people put the number at 10,000 farmers in Brussels. Others put it at 20,000. It was huge. It was a huge protest. I think it was more along the lines of 20,000 farmers and tractors and throwing throwing manure in the center of Brussels at EU headquarters and dumping all kinds of products in the streets, potatoes and fruits and vegetables in protest, burning stuff. And they're upset. And the reason the Mercosur does not go through is because the farmers understand that if this deal goes through, then they're going to take a huge hit. And they understand that. You're going to have the agricultural products from South America coming into Europe, and they're going to undercut the farmers, and it's going to do a lot of damage to the farmers. And they were protesting. They were protesting big time. The demonstration concluded with an EU leaders summit in Brussels, where the long-delayed Mercosur deal was again under discussion. Farmers across Belgium, France, and other EU states fear the agreement will open the door to cheaper agricultural imports from South America, undercutting European producers who must comply with stricter environmental and animal welfare standards. So to sum it up, the summit in Brussels was a big bust, a big failure. But when it comes to the 90 billion, one thing is already being reported, and that is Ursula and Kaja Kallas. They will continue to try and get the Russian assets. They are not stopping with the Russian assets. So they've got the 90 billion, and they're going to work over the next year to get those Russian assets. So what else? What else was going on in the world here at the Acropolis? Well, the Acropolis is there. Trump signed the Pentagon budget, 901 billion to be exact. 901 billion, 800 million going to Zelensky for 2 years, 400 million and 400 billion and 400 billion, which is, 800 million for Kiev. 800 million, my bad. So 800 million to Ukraine over 2 years, and 901 billion Pentagon package, the largest in history, signed by Trump, the National Defense Authorization Act. And Pete Hegseth, the Secretary of War, he was giving a speech talking about how difficult it is to recruit. Very difficult, he said, to recruit. Pete Hegseth. And the reason Pete Hegseth gave for the difficulty in recruiting into the U.S. military is because, and you can't make this up, these are his words, not mine. People are too fat or too stupid. And then he walked it back. He walked it back a bit. He realized what he said, and he said, well, I didn't mean that. And he kind of changed up his answer a bit. He started talking about ADHD and stuff like that. But his first response as to why it's difficult to recruit into the U.S. military was what I said. not good words coming from the Secretary of War. This Trump administration. Chaotic. Very, very chaotic. The Apostle Paul in Athens. The footsteps of the Apostle Paul. This is where the Apostle Paul was. Interesting. So we had some more Epstein news, or more Epstein photos, actually. The Democrats released about 68 or 70 photos of Epstein. And they released photos of passports of the girls, redacted, passports from various countries, Ukraine passports, Lithuanian, Czech, Russian, South African nationals, Italian. So that was released, as well as photos of feet. We got feet pics. We got feet photos with writing on the feet. And also a photo with some famous billionaires, right? One famous billionaire was in a photo as well. And so that was released by the Democrats, and they're going to continue to release stuff on Epstein. Actually, I believe Ro Khanna has even said that he wants everything released by today, I believe he said, or else he's going to start putting out lawsuits. I believe that is what Ro Khanna stated. So he wants all of the Epstein stuff released. So let's do a clown world, and we can wrap up today's video. I want to go down there, but I can't. So President Trump has created a walk of fame in the White House. Remember the report about, talked about this a couple of weeks ago, about the photos of presidents lined up in right outside the Oval Office in the White House, and it had every president's photo in a gold frame. And at the end of the list, right before Trump, you got to Biden, and Biden was a picture of an auto pen. Well, now we've got plaques underneath those photos, and each of the plaques is a Truth Social post written by Trump. Acropolis cat, the cats of the Acropolis, written by Trump, and these are Truth Social posts. We're talking with the capital letters and the misspelling, everything, and they're right underneath the photos of the presidents. And some photos of the presidents have two plaques. They couldn't get it into one plaque, so they actually have two plaques with Trump's Truth Social post on each president. So, for example, Ronald Reagan, he was a fan of Trump, according to what Trump says in the plaque under the photo of Ronald Reagan. He was a fan of Trump's. Obama was, I believe he said he was the most divisive president in U.S. history, right? I think that's what he said of Obama in his plaque. I can't believe this. I can't believe that the Trump White House actually spent time on this. I mean, this was done in Mar-a-Lago when Trump was not president. You would say, okay, no problem, whatever. But this was done by the President of the United States and his team. Obama is the most divisive president. And underneath Biden is the post about Biden being the worst president in US history, and it actually even calls him sleepy. Sleepy Joe. Unbelievable. Oh man, unbelievable. Funny in a way, but also bizarre. Also bizarre. The President of the United States doing this in the White House. All right. It is what it is. I guess they had some time to put this project together. Trump also announced the Hunger Games. Oh no, the Patriot Games. He announced that there's going to be the Patriot Games. And it's going to be 2 people from each state, a man and a woman. A man and a woman competing in athletic events. The Patriot Games. So we got that as well. Oh man, Kash Patel was on Katie Miller, I believe. That's the wife of, Katie Miller's podcast, the wife of Stephen Miller, who's the deputy chief of staff, right? She has a very popular podcast because she's able to get all of the Trump administration officials on her podcast. And she had Kash Patel and Kash Patel's girlfriend on the podcast because Kash Patel doesn't really have much to do, right? So he took some time off to appear on a podcast. Yeah, and they talked about their relationship and taking private jets to see his country singer girlfriend and stuff like that. Can't make this stuff up. And finally we go to the Russian shadow fleet. The Russian shadow fleet. And we are getting reports from CNN. It's a CNN exclusive that the Russian shadow fleet is not only a shadow fleet, but it's also a spy fleet. That's right. According to a CNN exclusive, from their sources, their Ukrainian sources, so their sources are very good because it's being sourced by Ukrainian officials, so you can take that one to the bank, right? You got Ukrainian sources telling CNN that on the Russian shadow fleet, on the tankers, there are a couple of Russian mercenaries, Russian security on these tankers. And according to Ukraine, this Russian security is there to spy on Europe, on the collective West. That's what they're doing. That's why they're on the shadow fleet tankers. A couple, like two Russian security officials, mercenaries, whatever you want to call them, right? Russian passport holders. They're on these oil tankers, and the reason they're there is to spy on the Europeans from the oil tankers, because Russia doesn't have any satellites or anything like that. Nope. They need a couple of guys on oil tankers to figure out what Europe is doing. It never crossed their minds, CNN, that perhaps CNN, the Russian security officials are there to prevent any type of piracy from the collective West. Did you ever think of that? Nope, you didn't think of that. Nope, they're there to take photos. According to CNN, they're on the shadow fleet. They're on the oil tankers to take photos. They're taking photos of Europe as they're sailing around. Oh boy. Anyway, all right. I think I will end the video there. Nice walk. Nice walk today. I did not say like, share, subscribe. I did not say like, share, subscribe. My bad. So maybe you can like and share and subscribe. That would be cool. And check us out on Telegram, Rumble, and X. The links are in the description box down below. You can also go to the Durant shop, pick up some merch, and also check us out on Substack. We are also on Substack as well. We'll see everyone tomorrow.